Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Saskatchewan Pulse Growers and BASF.
Okay, herbicide layering is not a new concept. It's been around for a while. It differs from tank mixing in that we're applying a pre-herbicide, pre-seed or pre-emerge herbicide, so it's a soil active herbicide. And then following it with a post-emergence herbicide with a different mode of action. So the concept is really to use that pre-herbicide as a setup treatment to not totally control all the weeds that you want to control, but at least reduce the densities. And the concept being with fewer weeds post-emergence, you take a lot of pressure off your post-emergence herbicide treatment and reduce the risk of herbicide resistance. So a tank mix is really a single application where you're applying two or three different modes of action, maybe more, at the same time. In this case, we're not applying them at the same time, we're really applying them sequentially. But the idea is similar. We're trying to use multiple modes of action in the same year, because we know that tank mixing or using multiple modes of action of herbicides is one of the best ways to reduce or delay the onset of herbicide resistance. The other thing about it is you may be in a situation where we don't have a herbicide that will provide perfect control of a weed. And one of the examples would be cleavers in field peas on soils with high organic matter. So we have products like sulfentrazone that have some activity on it pre-emergence, and then we have some products like bentazone and imazamox post-emergence that have some effect, but nothing perfect. But when you combine the two together, the pre and the post, you end up with additive weed control and satisfactory weed control. Well, that's one of the main benefits. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're doing it, is trying to manage herbicide resistance or delay the onset of it. But the other aspect of it is that there are some difficult to control weeds. We're not getting a lot of new herbicide options for pulse growers. In some cases, we'll find a herbicide like peroxysulfone, for example, relatively new herbicide that has some activity on a particular weed, but it may be just suppression. And so by using that herbicide plus a post-emergence herbicide that might not be also highly effective, but combining the two, we can improve efficacy. So it's really two factors we're trying to do, improve weed control efficacy and delay the onset of herbicide resistance. Well, one of the studies that we've done, I should say, point out right from the start that the work has just started, so it's fairly limited right now. Where we have focused primarily on is cleavers control, cleavers in field pea, and these would be on soils with higher than 8% organic matter. And what we did there is we applied a number of pre-herbicides, sulfentrazone, ethylfluralin, clomazone, and peroxysulfone. And then by itself, then we applied a post-emergent herbicide, a commonly used one, imazamox and bentazone, by itself. And then we combined the two of them together. And we found with the pre's, we would be getting anywhere from 40 to 60% control, maybe sometimes as high as 70. When with the posts, we were in that same range of maybe 50 to sometimes as high as 80%. But when we combined the two together, we were usually well over the 80% control. So it proved consistency of control, and it also improved the overall efficacy in terms of control. And sometimes even if we didn't make that 80% control, we did find still that the combination of the two was better than the individual herbicides applied by themselves. In terms of where it hasn't worked that well yet, we really haven't come up against that. We will have to see if there's the main concern I guess I would have and that we'll have to look at in the future is if the pre-herbicide, if the tolerance of the crop is maybe marginal, does that predispose it to herbicide injury from the post? So that's something we'll have to look at closely in the future. But for the most part, like I said, it's pretty limited research that we've done so far. And the biggest success story has been with cleavers and field peas. Well, first of all, I think we have to be, using registered herbicides, and typically, if you're trying something maybe perhaps not registered, it's only had limited testing, there may be more potential for a risk of injury there. So I think proper application timing is important for both the pre and the post. The big thing when you're talking about with pulse crops and the type of injury that you might get, it revolves around environment. And so it's really hard to control the environment. For example, the yellow flash that you get sometimes when you apply a imidazolinone herbicide to peas post-emergent. We found that if your conditions are such that the crop isn't metabolizing the herbicide well, so under moisture stress, in particular, if we've got waterlogged conditions, the symptoms that you get of the yellow flash symptoms or the damage that you see, albeit temporary, is much worse. So it's all about following the labels really of the individual products and making sure your application timing is in that range that it's labeled for.